this piece, again, on Piagetian cognition. Do you have a sense of what I was trying to accomplish with that? First, let me say that I love to design material for my clients. And I design the material against an approach that I want to take and the goals that I have for the client. So let's think about it a little bit. That that was a tube that I had above the girl's head. And my objective there was for her, first of all, the objective there was for her to pull down on the string to make the doll come out of the tube. Now that tube challenged the client cognitively in a few ways. Can you think of some of the ways that material may have challenged her reasoning skills and her awareness? And I particularly like to focus on awareness and where children direct their awareness at any particular time. Yes, one possibility is the doll was hidden. She saw me place the doll in the tube that was hanging over her head. So I demonstrated to her, or I produced for her, an object displacement. That is, I hid the object within the tube. So once it was in the tube, she was seeing the tube and had to recall or have a continuing idea of the doll and have some desire to get it out. So that was one challenge, is to keep her mind on the doll, even though it's disappeared and she has facing her a tube. In a sense, then, her mind had to be in two places at once. The doll inside the tube and the tube she was watching, with her primary focus, hopefully, on the doll. Then, if she had that ability to continue to think about the doll, and that should ring a bell with most of you, because I'm sure you've had material on Piaget over the years of your years of schooling at the graduate and undergraduate level. And you may vaguely remember that at the sensory motor stage of development, the great accomplishment is, at the end of that stage, is the achievement of object permanence. That is, remembering or recognizing, being aware that an object exists even after it's disappeared. So this really then, the part where the doll disappeared within the tube challenged object permanence. I wasn't sure this child had yet achieved object permanence, even at 8. And so I was challenging her to keep her mind on that doll. The second component of that task was the idea of pulling on the string to get the doll to slide out and come down. That's a means-end task, and and that's the beginning or the first time the child becomes conscious of cause and effect. So I wanted her to cause the doll to come out of the tube by pulling down, and to anticipate, by the way, now that by pulling on the string, the doll would slide out. That part of the task required this child to think of the doll up, and the goal end place where the doll would end up, which was on the table, down. So the child had to think of both up, where the doll was, and down where the doll would be if she pulled on the string. And the string was, by the way, a third thing that she kind of had to keep her mind on. The doll, the string, and the goal spot where the doll would end up. And her reasoning had to be such that she had to recognize that the tube had to angle so that downward, so that that doll would slide down. those are at least the challenges to this child's cognition and reasoning. And I was very interested in posing those challenges to this child because those challenges relate to language content. How do they relate to language content? Well, if you remember, as we were looking at the Bloom and Leahy content categories, we were saying that language is about making relationships between subjects and objects through action, or through one event and another event through action, or through action basically. So that is the verb. So what I was creating for the child is an object, an activity that challenged her to first create relationships physically with physical objects. The tube, the doll, the string, the dish or the bowl where the doll was going to fall down. Physical objects. And secondly, if she could use that experience to help develop the ability to make relationships that are relevant to language, then she would have a symbolic kind of relationship making that she could engage in, and that is thinking about and talking about in the long run. Relationships that lead to the ideas such as the doll is in the tube, locative state. Idea relationships like the doll is going to fall down or the doll fell down, locative action. Remembering simply the doll exists, the name of the doll or the object of the doll, existence, etc. So the activity incorporated the making of physical relationships to achieve a goal or an objective that in my mind may serve as a foundation for the development of the kinds of relationships that will ultimately that underlie language content, particularly semantic relations and content categories, and ultimately that would support hopefully the development of the form of language, the words and the syntax to deliver the message. My point ultimately though here is that material and that relationship making and that experience that I created for the child represents a Piagetian type event and engages Piagetian aspects of cognition. And that's what I want to expand upon shortly. I know you have had background in other courses in those very well-known Piaget stages, the sensory motor stage, the pre-operational stage, concrete operations, and formal operations. Those were the stages that he had identified earlier in his career. But I will review those briefly as I go on here. But my major aim here, my major objective with you, is to make you aware of and sensitive to the qualities of a Piagetian task and the qualities of reasoning and awareness that relate to language content form interactions. So I'm going to end this particular segment of the lecture, and I will continue on when you click the next click on the next video segment.